So, here's the deal. Gypsy Rose Blanchard, yes, the one you all know, has been a hot topic lately. Gypsy served only 8.5 years of her 10-year sentence, and now she's out here trying to live her life like nothing happened.
You know, can't bring me down. I'm on a high right now. I'm living my best life, and y'all can't take that from me.
But here's the thing, Gypsy isn't just out here minding her own business. She's influencing people, and not in a good way. The kind of influence she's spreading is disturbing, especially for our young generation, and I think it's time we talk about it. Today I want to focus on one incident that's perfect representation of the dangerous impact Gypsy is having. It's about a school project. A project created by a 12-year-old that really made me stop and think about how twisted things are getting. It's scary to see how misinformation, glorification, and just plain bad influences can impact young minds, and it's high time we put the spotlight on this. And while we're at it, let's talk about what's happening to the rising culture that seems to glorify these kinds of actions.
Yes, I do feel like the system failed me. I realize that there are resources and things that are put in place to protect kids from going through what I went through. And unfortunately, I just fell through the cracks of all of it. Hi everybody, so I am excited to announce that I will be narrating the audiobook version for my memoir, My Time to Stand, coming out in December 10th, 2024. I am very excited about this project. It's very close to my heart. It means everything for me to share it in my own voice, in my own words. It's so meaningful to share a story like this that I feel like so many can relate to and have gone through something similar. And so I think this book could reach a lot of people's lives and touch a lot of people's lives. So I hope that y'all enjoy it if y'all want.
But there's a couple reasons why Gypsy Rose Blanchard is headed back to the big house.
Imagine this. A 12-year-old, just a middle schooler, creates a project about Gypsy Rose Blanchard. This was seen at a local county fair, and let me tell you, it wasn't just your average school project with a few facts and some photos glued on. This kind went all out with it, adding blood splatters and even including crime scene photos. Yeah, you heard that right. Photos of the bloody bed where Didi Blanchard was found, and blood-soaked gloves and knives. Now, I don't know about you, but something about a 12-year-old putting this kind of imagery on a school project feels wrong on so many levels. The project was titled Didi and Gypsy. It was filled with all these so-called facts about Gypsy's life. The kid went ahead and said that Gypsy was brutally abused for years by her mother Didi. They even claimed Didi had Munchausen syndrome by proxy, and that she forced Gypsy through unnecessary treatments and surgeries, keeping her in a wheelchair and pretending Gypsy had the mental capacity of a young child.
I feel like the biggest misconception about me is that they think that I'm still that little girl that got arrested or that was in the wheelchair living with my mother. I think they don't realize that there has been a time gap from when I got arrested to now. I've grown up, I'm matured, I'm a woman, I'm married. Like, a lot has changed.
Honestly, every bit of that misinformation, a narrative that's been spun by the media and Gypsy's defense team to paint her as a victim. And this is where it gets terrifying. You've got this kid, just 12 years old, creating this project full of misinformation, using blood spatters to decorate it, and even including the most graphic details of the case. It's like they were trying to make Gypsy into some sort of hero, a savior who had told her mother to escape. But here's the thing, none of that is true. Gypsy was not in danger. She didn't need to kill anyone. The truth is, Didi had even told her to leave if she wanted to, but Gypsy didn't leave. Instead, she manipulated Nicolas Godejohn into carrying out her sick plan, all for her twisted fantasies. What really gets to me though is the fact that this project was allowed. How did the parent think it was okay? How did the teacher let this slide? And what about the school? Why was this kind of glorification of violence and misinformation put on display for everyone to see? It speaks volumes about the state of our society today, and it's not something we should just brush off.
Are we not going to talk about this? The fact that Gypsy Rose Blanchard has been a menace to society? A local mom posted this and said that she went to a fair and this was what was displayed. A child did a report on a board of Gypsy Rose Blanchard and giving the story that she was brutally abused by her mother for years. When we know that this isn't the truth, but even if you believe that, Gypsy was not in imminent danger at the time that she unalived her mom. So these kids are actually condoning not being in imminent danger and unaliving someone. Even if you fell for the entire story, this would still be a problem.
This isn't an isolated incident, and that's the most terrifying part. The project we talked about, the one created by a 12-year-old, isn't just a random case of bad judgment. It's a symptom of a growing culture, a culture that is glorifying young people who are parents. And it's not just about Gypsy. There are other cases that show this disturbing trend. Let's start by talking about Carly Gregg. Carly was only 14 years old when she did an unthinkable. And she ended up with a life sentence without the possibility of parole. 14? A life sentence without any hope for the future? That's the kind of punishment that reflects the gravity of her actions, and it makes you think about the seriousness of taking another life. But then we have Gypsy Rose Blanchard. Gypsy was 23, maybe 24, when she planned and executed her mother's murder, with the help of Nicolas Godejohn, whom she manipulated into carrying it out. She served only 8.5 years of a 10-year sentence, and now she's walking free. The inconsistency here is staggering. Carly Gregg, just a child herself, got a life sentence. Meanwhile, Gypsy, who was an adult and had the ability to make informed decisions, received what can only be described as a lenient punishment and is now living her life outside of prison. This discrepancy is more than just shocking, it's dangerous. And it sends a message loud and clear to young people. If you make yourself look like a victim, you can avoid the consequences of even the most heinous actions.
And then because she's seen what Gypsy Rose is doing with her life after lockup, because Lifetime has promoted that, Carly Gregg's thinking, life after lockup is looking damn good, so whatever goes on, even if I get a bit of time, it's so going to be worth it. So worth it. Because let's face it, Gypsy Rose is not she's been given that opportunity to make it look like, hey kids, kill your mum, do the time, get a promotion with Lifetime, sign a deal with them, you'll be minted, and then you can get on TikTok and they'll verify your account and everything, and then you can become famous, and you wouldn't necessarily have to put the money in your name, because that might not be allowed in your state, but you could put it in someone else's name, like your stepdad, because clearly he's forgiven you for killing the love of his life, even though you're not his biological daughter, and you could still get money that way. And she's seen all of that and thought, yeah, this is good. And it kind of makes me wonder, do people like Carly Gregg follow Gypsy Rose Blanchard? Did Carly Gregg follow Gypsy Rose Blanchard? I don't suppose we'll ever know, will we?
And then there's Sydney. Remember Sydney, the 19-year-old university student whose life took a disastrous turn when she expelled from school? She didn't want her mother to find out. She was ashamed, panicked maybe, but her response was to cover up her lies in the most horrifying way possible. She staged a break-in and brutally her mother, hitting her with a frying pan and stabbing her multiple times, just to hide the fact that she had failed out of college. Sydney was sentenced to 15 years in prison, and even that felt lenient given the brutal nature of her actions.
So her mom wouldn't find out that she failed out of college. She hit her mom over the head with a frying pan, which is what the administrator and the dean heard on the phone, and she also stabbed her like upwards of 30 times in the neck. And by all accounts, it seems like they had a fine, if not a close relationship, which makes it all the more crazy that this happened. Now at trial, it is not disputed that Sydney killed her mother. The question at trial is whether or not she was suffering from a schizophrenic break and did not know right from wrong at the time at which she killed her mom. The defense presented some evidence that she'd been diagnosed with schizophrenia, but ultimately she was charged and sentenced to 15 years in prison with an opportunity of parole after that. I think the jury decided this because of the actions that happened right around the time she killed her mom, of picking up the phone from the administration, pretending to be her mom, picking up the phone from the dad, pretending everything's fine, then breaking a window from the inside to kind of create a story that's in line with somebody that knows that they did something wrong.
It's chilling to think about the extent she went to and avoid facing the truth. But somehow, Gypsy, who carefully manipulated Nicolas Godejohn, a vulnerable individual, to do her dirty work, gets off easy with what can only be described as sweetheart deal. And now she's out there playing the victim once again. It makes you wonder, what kind of message are we sending to our kids? Are we really teaching them that if you spin the right story, you can escape the consequences of your actions? What's even more disturbing is how society seems to have soft spot for these kinds of cases, especially when it's a daughter who people seem almost eager to find a reason to justify it, to believe that there was no other choice. But that's not true. Not for Gypsy, not for Sydney. Where's the accountability? Where's the sense of justice for the victim? These are disturbing stories, but what's even more disturbing is how they are being twisted into something almost glorifiable. Kids are seeing this. They're seeing how Gypsy is portrayed in the media, how people are defending her, and they are taking notes. And that's exactly what we are seeing in these school projects. Kids putting bloodstains on their displays and calling Gypsy a hero. It's beyond scary. We are creating a culture that romanticizes these crimes, paints these perpetrators as tragic figures rather than holding them accountable. The next thing you know, we've got middle school kids taking misinformation and turning it into school projects, complete with blood-splattered visuals. What kind of message does that send to a young, impressionable mind? This project wasn't about learning or understanding. It was about sensationalizing a brutal crime, and it's a reflection of how deeply these narratives feed into our culture. Let's take a moment to talk about Gypsy post-prison. Since she got out, she's been actively trying to craft a new image for herself. Like she's some kind of influencer, and it's honestly pathetic. She's out here flaunting herself on social media, her voice still high-pitched, just like it was during those early interviews when she wanted everyone's sympathy.
I'm finally free. I just want to send a quick video to thank everyone for the massive amount of support that I've been getting on social media.
And guess what? People are falling for it again. She's capitalizing on her crime, on her mother's death, and it seems like the world has conveniently forgotten what she did. Instead of facing the consequences, she's using her past as a stepping stone for attention, for fame. And if you go back and look at her messages with Nicolas Godejohn, you'll see how unsettling it all was. She wasn't scared. She wasn't desperate. She was thrilled, absolutely excited that the day had come to carry out her plan. It was almost like a game for her, and now she's out here trying to reinvent herself as some sort of social media personality, acting like she has something meaningful to share. But the reality is, she's still the same person, manipulative, dangerous, and completely unrepentant for what she's done.
The Gypsy Rose that went into prison as someone who honestly was very lost and confused of who she was and who she's going to be. And I think that the Gypsy that walked out of prison is finally coming to her own and very accepting of who she is now and hopeful for the future.
And what's even more baffling is that there are people out there who actually support her, who think she deserves that platform. They buy into the story of being a victim, and in doing so, they are contributing to this culture that glorifies what she did. They're enabling her to keep spinning this narrative, to keep profiting off a crime that shattered lives. Nicholas, the one who she manipulated into doing her dirty work, is sitting in prison for life while Gypsy walks free, and somehow people are okay with this. And it's truly disturbing. Look, I get it. People want to feel empathy. They want to believe that Gypsy was just a victim, that she was forced into doing what she did because of something or some tragic, inescapable. But that's not what's happened here. The reality is that Gypsy made choices that led to the death of her mother, choices that manipulated a vulnerable person into committing murder for her. And now she's free, while Nicholas, the one she manipulated, sits in prison for life. It's not fair. And it's not right. What's even worse is how the narrative is affecting our kids. When 12-year-olds are creating school projects that glorify violence, using misinformation, and celebrating someone like Gypsy Rose, we have a problem. We need to talk about this, not in a way that glorifies Gypsy, but in a way that makes it clear that what she did was wrong. We need to stop romanticizing these kinds of stories and start holding people accountable. Because if we don't, we're just paving way for more kids to think that this kind of behavior is acceptable or even heroic, and that's not a world we should want to live in. So, what do you all think? Am I overreacting, or is this something we need to be seriously worried about? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Let's have a real conversation about this. And while you're here, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. You've got a lot more to say on this topic. I've got a lot more to say on this topic, and I think it's a conversation we all need to be having, openly and honestly. Thanks for sticking with me today. I appreciate every one of you who's willing to look at this critically to question what's really going on here. I'll see you all next time. Take care.